Hello friends, welcome to my channel about making money online. On this channel, in the format of an ordinary life blog, I show my work routine, how I, sitting in front of the computer, try to earn on a daily basis. Today, I'm going to show you a decent strategy that I found, tested, and will be using today. To work with this strategy, I only use 3 different indicators, and I will start this video with setting up the indicators themselves. So I have already entered my trading room, and I am slowly adding all the indicators. The first indicator that I will use today is called ADX. I add it to the chart, after which I go to the settings. And here I am changing the first and second parameters. I changed the first parameter from 14 to 12, and I also decreased the second parameter from 14 to 12. After that, I go to Styles, and as usual, when working with the ADX indicator, I will only use the top line, so I just disable the other 2 lines, leaving only the top line. Then I click the Save button. Then I add a second indicator, or to be precise, it's actually 2 indicators. I add 2 moving averages to the chart. First, I set up the first moving average. Here, I set the period to 9 and change the moving average type to EMA. Then I go to the styles and change the color of this line so that I know where my short period moving average is. I'll make this line yellow, make it a bit thicker, and then press the Save button. Then I set up the second moving average. I will use a period of 16, and here I also set the moving average type to EMA. Then I go to Styles and do the same to change the color of this line so that I can understand where I have the moving average with a longer period. I will make this line white and also make it a little thicker. Then I press the Save button. And the last indicator that I will need today is called Fractal. I add it to the chart and go to the settings. Here I use the standard settings, that is, I leave the period at 2. I also don't change anything in the style. Then I click Save. Basically, my indicator setup is configured, but now it's also important to properly set up the chart to get accurate signals. Today, I will be opening 1-minute trades. I set the trade amount to $300. To open 1-minute trades and get clear signals, I use the following chart settings. It greatly affects the signals I receive. So today, I will use candlestick chart type and set the candle time frame to 30 seconds. With this, I am completely done setting up my workspace. Now I'm ready to move on to explaining the strategy. But before that, friends, I remind you that I left a link to the platform I work on in the pinned comment. On this platform, there is a completely free demo account where you can test this and many other strategies without any investment. You can simply sign up, open an account, and as soon as the account is opened, a demo account will be available for testing different strategies. Now let's move on to the explanation. So, I can work with any chart using this strategy. And when I switch between different assets, I always look at the ADX indicator. So, what do I want to see here? Here is a line. I am looking at the current value, which is where this line has stopped now. And in order to enter trades, I need this value to be higher than 20. In general, the ADX indicator shows the strength of the current movement. It doesn't matter at all which direction this movement is going. The movement can be going up or it can be going down. The higher the ADX indicator value here, the stronger the current movement. And for example, on the chart, I see that the price has been going down for quite a long time, and now I see that the ADX indicator value is 40, which is twice as much as my minimum that I use for entering trades, so the current movement is quite strong. However, this is not the only condition that I personally watch for in order to enter trades. The thing is, for example, if the chart has been going down for a long time and then starts to bounce back, the ADX value may still be quite high. But if I see that the ADX indicator line is pointing down, it means it is showing the strength of the previous movement. And the previous movement is losing strength. So for entering trades, it is important for me that the ADX value is not just above 20, but also that this line should be either pointing upwards or be flat. If I see that the line is pointing downwards, like right now, it means that the movement that occurred before it is simply losing its strength. This is the first indicator that I pay attention to. After I saw and understood that there is a situation on the chart where there is a movement of sufficient strength, I then look at the moving average, specifically at the slow moving average and the fast moving average. These two indicators help me determine the direction of the current movement. So, how do I do this? I look at which line is currently on top. For example, if I see that the slow-moving average is above the fast-moving average, like right now, it means that the movement is currently going downwards. And for example, for a fairly long time, I see that the slow-moving average was above the fast-moving average. This means that the chart movement was downwards all this time. Accordingly, if I see that the fast-moving average is above the slow-moving average, I'll try to find a moment. Well, for example, there was an upward movement here, and the fast-moving average was above the slow-moving average. This means that the price is heading upwards and we are in an upward movement. Accordingly, if I see that the chart, or rather the current movement, has enough strength and, for example, this movement is downward, then I consider the situation in which I can enter into a down trade. If I see that the current movement is upward, then I consider situations in which I can enter into an up trade. And the last indicator I pay attention to is the fractal. So, in order to enter a down trade, I need the last fractal on the chart to be green and pointing upwards like this. If I see that no new fractals have appeared after this, then I enter a down trade. If I see that the last fractal was like this red one and pointing downwards, then I can enter up trades. Well, in general, I try to explain everything quite thoroughly. Now, moving on to the practical part. So I will not enter trades on this chart because here, according to the ADX indicator, the current movement is losing its strength. I'll see what else is available. As I was saying, I can work with absolutely any charts. What do we have here? According to the ADX indicator, the value is just above 20. It's basically not directed downwards. Overall, the moving averages indicate a downward trend, and the last fractal was this green one. Therefore, here I can enter a down trade for $300 for 1 minute. And now I'm watching this trade. While I wait for this trade to complete, I'll also say a few words about why I specifically use an amount of $300. I actually mention this in every single one of my videos, regardless of the strategy I'm using or the set of indicators I apply. I understand that my trades can end up in the red, and that's quite a normal part of my job. But the only thing is, I want to somehow manage the losses. Therefore, I've come up with one simple rule. I don't open trades that are worth more than 1% of my balance. So right now, the maximum trade amount for my balance is about $320. But for convenience, I use a slightly smaller amount. And now I'll explain why. So, if this trade closes in the negative, then I will open the next trade with double the amount. That means I only have to wait here for about 10 seconds, and if this trade closes in the negative, then I will open the next one not for $300, but for $600. If the trade closes in the positive, and it closed in the positive, then I just leave the amount at $300. Right now, I'm going to find a good opportunity to enter a trade. Well, basically, on this chart, I could enter another down trade for $300. A new candle has appeared, and a new fractal has formed. It's a red icon pointing downwards. This means I can't enter any more down trades on this chart for now. Well, maybe this trade will close at a loss. In that case, it's even better. I'll show you how the doubling strategy works. For example, if this trade closes at a loss, here I prepare $600 and then I look at this payout. And I understand that if my trade for $300 closes at a loss, and the next trade for $600 closes with a profit, then I will cover the loss from the trade for $300 and earn a little bit more on top. If my $600 trade closes at a loss, then next I use the amount of $1,200. And if the $1,200 trade, for example, closes at a profit, it recovers my loss from the $300 trade in one go. Also, I recover the losses from the $600 trade and earn a little extra on top. And then I return to the original trade amount of $300. Nevertheless, 2 consecutive down trades close in profit for me. Here, once again, a fractal appeared, and therefore I can enter down trades again. But I would like to find a good opportunity to enter an up trade. Maybe I'll be able to find the right moment now. So I'm looking at the ADX indicator first. I can't find anything yet. So, what do we have here? Here, the ADX indicator is slightly pointing down, but overall, let me enter a trade so as not to prolong the video. But this is not the best moment to enter a trade, since the ADX indicator is currently slightly pointing downwards, and I understand that this trade could easily close at a loss, so I am taking a bit of a risk here. However, the ADX value itself is quite high, 37. That's much higher than 20. This means the current upward movement has a lot of strength. But then again, this upward movement is slowly losing its strength. So once more, this might not be the best moment to enter an uptrade. Nevertheless, according to the moving averages, I see that the fast moving average is above the slow moving average. And this means that there is currently a strong upward movement. And the last fractal was of this red color, directed downwards, which opens up an opportunity for me to enter an uptrade. So there is just over 10 seconds left. Now I will carefully watch this trade. Just in case, I can prepare an amount of $600 if this trade closes negatively. So there is literally 1 second left, and still my trade closes positively. And with that, I will slowly wrap up my video. So this is the strategy. This is how my trading day went, or rather, a short trading session. I hope the video was helpful and interesting for you. If so, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. Also, friends, I remind you that on my channel, all I do is share my personal experience. I do not give financial advice. With that, I will say goodbye to you. I wish you luck.